Okay, hello. Welcome to the fourth installment of the Past Facebook Live Pop-Up Expert Series. In this session, you guys will have the opportunity to basically ask me anything, any of your data, SQL, technology-related questions in real time, live Q&A. I'm going to be focused on data visualization, hopefully, but the sky's the limit. If you guys have a question you'd like to ask, just type it into the comment section below now, and they'll appear on screen as I answer them. We love hearing your questions, so go ahead and start asking. I love hearing your questions. Okay, so I see we have people that are joining. I'm excited to have you guys on here. Basically, you just type in the questions and I will work to answer them. I think I saw one question come up there. Okay, so let me do a quick intro. So my name is Mico and I've been a part of the past community. I'm not as veteran as everybody else. I've been there for probably about the last 3 to 4 years. When they did the BA conference, the Business Analytics conference, I did the keynote there. And so since then, I did this workshop last year on data storytelling, and I've had a really great time with you guys. You guys probably see my shirt, BI Brains. We focus on creating enterprise data visualizations in Atlanta, but my love and passion is data visualization. So I'm pretty excited. Okay, so let's go ahead and start with the questions. I saw one that came up. It says, how do you determine what to show in your data visualizations? So this is interesting. I think a lot of times people tend to focus on what's pretty and not pretty, or they tend to focus on the data. I think what we see that works is when people focus on the story. So once you start focusing on, and when I say the story, it's a lot deeper than just having like KPIs or having metrics. That's very topical, right? When I say focus on the story, for instance, for those of you that are going to take some notes, you want to write this down. We focus on a 3-part story when we do storytelling. It's four. There's your goal, there's your KPIs, there's your trends or causes, and then you have your actions. And so what we do is kind of starting on top of the goal is we figure out, we create what you guys would call a SMART goal, if any of you are familiar with Peter Drucker, and we really define the magnitude of it. We then look at the KPIs as being, okay, what KPIs do I need to measure to hit my goal? We then look at the causes, which are the trends, which is we say, okay, if my KPIs are not on target, then what trends do I need to follow? And then last, we have the actions to fix it. So that storyline is something that if you follow that, then creating data visualizations and what you need to put in them is not going to be an issue. The one thing I will say is that do not only build data visualizations based on data availability. That's a big misconception. It causes a lot of problems. So I hope that answered that question. Great question. Thank you. All right, let's see what's next. Oh boy, this one is Tableau or Power BI. Okay, so I'm a pretty unbiased. Just before I answer this question, because it always comes up everywhere I go around the world, this comes up when I'm on stage, especially. I'm completely unbiased when it comes to tools. A matter of fact, for a disclaimer, our company does develop in about 4 different tools, including Tableau and Power BI. However, I will say this. I personally love Power BI, and not because we're in past, because my team loves using it because it's very easy to use. When it comes to Tableau, I think Tableau is extremely powerful, but actually, let me take it 2 levels. There's 2 things. If you're authoring dashboards to provide it for someone, I think that both Power BI and Tableau are great, but Power BI is probably a lot easier, okay, to utilize, though, it's maturing and moving fast. If you're doing data discovery, I think Tableau is better. However, for instance, when it comes to doing reporting, right, any type of reporting or detailed reporting, both of them are not the best. Also, Power BI exceeds, in my opinion, when it comes to mobile functionality. So if I did head-to-head, I would say Tableau is more mature. It is a bit more costly. So admittedly, we have customers that are complaining about the high costs. As you guys know, Power BI is cheaper. And so because of the fact that a lot of people don't even use more than 15% of all capability of the tool, I would definitely say Power BI will probably get most of what everybody needs to get done. That's my humble opinion. Wow, you guys are getting in fast here. These questions are lighting up out of my record. All right, what's next? Great question. Okay, hi, Jen. Great question. Hope I can call you Jen. What is your process to determine the best visualization tool to use? Okay, that's a great question. So there's a number of steps that we take, and I just kind of went through a couple of things. I will share it with you guys. I don't know what's the process to share it. That a 10, I have like a 10-point checklist, but we look at 10 things, and I'll write it down. Oh my God, I hope I can remember. We look at obviously who's using it, what they're using it for. So you saw me talk about case in point. If you have an analyst who wants to do data discovery, Tableau is great. But the first high level, let me take a step backward, is, are you authoring something first of all, or is it something someone is using to consume for themselves? Then you look at, before you get to all this data stuff and all these little features, you look at how are they going to consume it? Like, is mobility important, or is it just on my desktop, for instance? Second of all, you then dive into, okay, what's the use of this with the users and who are they, right? Are they sophisticated? Are they not sophisticated? We also look at what a company has existing within their entities, right? So we go based on their setup, whether it's the data systems or whatnot, where the data is coming from, or are they just using an Excel sheet? We then look at items like where it's going to be hosted. Is it going to be on their portal, or is it going to be on something else? So we have like a 10 kind of checklist sheet that we go through. And based on that, we then determine, okay, this is the best tool. Now that's a little bit more in depth than most people go. A lot of people just go, oh, what does the business want to do with it? That's fantastic, but it's very short thinking, and it's why BI fails. Because what happens is they're so focused on just what the business wants to do with it that all these other things are not factored in until last minute when it doesn't work. So we tend to go kind of step by step. Obviously, the business actual use is at the top of it, but we go step by step because, again, I go back to it. When business users come and they want specific functionality, the reality is that if you're using Tableau Gen, you can SQL your way into anything. We build in Tableau Click. If you're using Click, you can do the same thing, right? Power BI, you have to do a bit of manufacturing. So one of our guys said something great. He said, listen, the bar chart hasn't been innovated since Stephen Few created a bullet chart, okay? Bar chart from tool to tool is going to be the same. The question is really about the usability and the use. So we, again, go through this kind of, sorry, that's a bit long-winded, but we do go through a fairly comprehensive checklist, even look at performance to really determine which tool is the best. And I don't know how to send that to you guys, but I'll talk to the guys at Pass and see. I'm happy to pass that on to you guys. Does anybody want the checklist? I'm looking for reactions. I don't quite know how to see reactions, but if I see reactions, I'll say great. Okay, awesome. All right. Top 3 data viz influencers. I do have my favorites. So my number one at the current moment, I'll be honest, I have a girl crush kind of on Colleen Nussbaum, just because I like storytelling. I love what she's doing, and I reached out to her. I also like Alberto Cairo. So if you guys haven't heard of Alberto Cairo, he wrote The Functional Art. He's pretty fantastic. I've actually had him as one of our first interviewers on a podcast. He's a trip, very blunt, but provides a lot of value. And then I would say my third one, I want to mention Stephen Few. A lot of people know him. I think if I take away the personal, I think that his book, Information Dashboard Design and Show Me the Numbers, I know Signals came up a bit later. I think those are some of kind of the top ones. I can keep going on and on. There's Nathan Yu. There is in data viz. In Europe, I should have mentioned this, there's HeatChart. For those of you who haven't heard of HeatChart, Rolf HeatChart is brilliant. We actually have his poster up in our office. If you want to go look at it, it's HICHERT, and they run the International Communication Business School. They're more German focused, but that little PDF that you can buy for $20 is game changing. So I run and buy that as soon as we get off of here. So I think those would be my top 3 to 4 favorites. All right, great question. Anything else? Do you have any tips to get users to buy into dashboards? Actually, I do. So there's 2 things when it comes to buy-in. First of all, for those of you who are doing data visualization, one of the mindsets that you need to change is a lot of people think that buying into dashboards is just showing people something pretty on the screen, right? Data visualizations, and it's actually not. If the one thing I want you guys to remember is that buy-in whether it's a dashboard or a report or a BI project or whatever you're doing, our project starts from the day you start the project. Okay. So people go through this kind of like trust factor when you start the project. And so I think that if you think about buy-in as starting from the beginning, everything you do from that point forward, from setting meetings to showing up on time to delivering when you say you're going to deliver, that actually adds up a lot into what ends up being buy-in. Okay. But if we look at the pure outcome, which is your visualization, we use a couple of tips that I'm going to give you guys. Again, I hope you're writing this down. Number one, we break up the approval process for data visualizations into 3 parts. Please write this down. Number one is we do a black and white wireframe. And the reason we do this is we realize that if you give people color too fast and data, they can't focus. So we give them a black and white wireframe so that all they focus on is approving like the layout and where things are. Then once they approve that layout and we use sample data to make sure that the magnitudes are correct, then we actually add color into there, right? And so at that point, they've now approved the layout and now they're saying, is it pretty or not? Okay. And then finally, we put it into the actual BI tool because we don't do mockups in tools. And then we add functionality. Now, the reason we do this, and we've proven it reduces the buy-in time for it by up to 50%, is that when you go in to one of these sessions and you have your entire model kind of seen and done, it overwhelms users. I mean, this has been studied, like scientifically studied in people's brains, where they're giving you feedback on the data. They're saying, oh, I don't like the chart. They're saying, I don't like where it is. If you break it up into those 3 segments, which is black and white wireframe, followed by color, then followed by functionality within the tool, you'll notice that the users start to give you very direct feedback and it goes a lot faster. So my tip is to break it up like we do into those 3 different sections. And I guarantee you guys on here, you'll cut down your requirement gathering time by at least 30%. In some cases, we've had some extreme results where we cut it down by 80%. So walked into a company, they were gathering requirements for 6 months. We're done with requirements in 2 weeks. So I highly recommend you guys implement those 3 steps. I hope that was helpful. All right. Other questions? Whew. All right. Do you have any tips or tricks for those struggling to create their first data visualization? Actually, I do. So it depends on what tool you guys are in. There is a lot of amazing tools on the web, okay? And a lot of amazing lessons. I don't want to send you guys on like a book hunt, but one of the things that we do internally when people come in is I recommend if you're getting started on this, right? Go online and just type in like data visualizations or great data visualizations. And I highly recommend that you go online, you take 1 or 2 and just start to recreate it. And the reason I do that is by recreating something that, you know, it's just kind of generic, you'll learn a number of the functionality and start to become comfortable. Because the reason why people struggle when they're doing data visualization is twofold. One, they're nervous, like, I don't know where to start. Like I always tell people, like the biggest fear that people have, guys, is a blank canvas. It is horrible. Even, you know, just sit on behind any blank canvas in a tool and people kind of go, okay, where do I start? But if you actually go and you take a look at some stuff online and you start building, you kind of get over that. The second thing I would say is download templates. I mean, every tool today, whether it's Power BI or Tableau or ClickView or Burst, those are some of the ones that we develop in. They all have some level of templates or stuff you could follow. So before you go in and start doing your own stuff, I'd recommend downloading a template maybe and dissecting it and modifying it. That's probably the quickest way to kind of get over creating your first database. That's a great question. There's a lot more available than I think what we had 10 years ago. I'll tell you that much. All right, more questions? Woo, I need water. Okay, what advice, thank you, Can, R.A. Can. What advice would you give to someone, just excuse me here, I'm just toggling in the water. What advice would you give to someone with a DBA background interested in getting into BI? Are there any specific training programs and certifications you'd recommend? Okay, so I've been asked this question before. It's a great question. And I also have a lot of really amazing data, like DBA people that come to my trainings. So I've noticed two things when dealing with DBAs. And by the way, I used to be one. I'm actually certified. I just didn't pursue it forward. Number one, if in the back end, there's the social DBAs and there's the non-social DBAs, right? So I always ask them, are you dealing with users or do you just get handed requirements? Because if you come into the BI segment, you have to be able to work with users, okay? So I'm gonna split this up in two, which is the DBAs who are focused on data and just get requirements maybe, and those who work with users. If you've just been in the back end, super focused on data, and I'm calling you RA Can, then what I recommend is I would go actually kind of seek out some classes that are focused on not even visualization, but just communication. Because the one thing you realize when you're in business intelligence, and let me just tell you if no one has told you, you're in the sales and marketing department. Like, if anybody can say a hooray to that, like you are literally in the sales and marketing department. You are selling a good, and that good is analytics and reports, and it's very visual and it drives results. So realizing that you're in that, I always make sure that before you embark on anything, communication is important. Second of all, because you have the strength of understanding the data, one of the things that you want to add on is just understanding now, how do I look at that data? So there's a number of different training programs online. Again, there's tool-specific training. So I don't know what tool you're using, Arikan, if whether you're doing Power BI, I know there's learnpowerbi.com. If you're doing Tableau, and I know Power BI offers a lot of free training on how to actually use a tool. If you're doing Tableau, they have their own training. But if you're just looking for quote unquote data visualization training, there's a number of programs. We have our own, but I'm not here to plug what we do, but I'll give you a few. So Stephen Few, he does trainings across the country. I've heard really good things about his trainings, Stephen Few. You then have, as I mentioned earlier, you have Colleen Nussbaum. She's focused on kind of stories and telling stories with your data. You have, I mentioned earlier, Alberto Cairo. They also have these different training programs, right? They're not necessarily technical, but they focus on the concept of data visualization. We have our own training program focused on the BI dashboard formula. So we actually teach people how to go from end to end to get trained in the actual process. Now, if you're a data person, let me go on the other side, that today already deals with users and you're comfortable, then what you need to do is make sure that you get well versed in your craft when it comes to a tool. Figure out what the business is using and just start to understand what the elements of that tool are and how you can better serve them. That's where I would start. I hope that answered that question. Certifications wise, unless you're tool specific, there isn't a lot of certifications I've seen for data viz. I know that people offer like some places have like storytelling certification, but I haven't seen a quote unquote certification for data viz unless you go to like a formal college. For example, I saw, for instance, that Harvard just started the business analytics program. MIT has programs. So there are programs that you can take that focus on this topic. But in terms of just going like how you get your DBA certification, unless it's tool specific, I haven't really seen a generic data viz certification. Sorry for the long answer, but that's kind of my take on that. I hope that helped you. All right, let me get my water. 1 second, sorry. Why do people hate pie charts? Oh boy, you guys are really trying to get me in trouble here. All right, listen, I don't hate pie charts. I like donuts. The pie chart argument is very old. It's very disturbing. So people hate pie charts, one, because once you go over, there's two problems with pie charts, and you can go online and look up this fight. It's been going for a long time. The first problem with pie charts is, number one, when you have, in my opinion, more than 2 to 3 series in it, meaning within it you have multiple pies, it becomes really hard. Like mentally, we're not able to understand the magnitudes within a pie chart for different slices. Number two, right, so if you have more, it becomes very hard to understand. I think the second reason is because sometimes, and I've seen this happen, within the pie chart values, if the values are very similar, like 30, 40%, it's hard to determine, again, the magnitude. So I think pie charts are hated because visually our brain doesn't tend to take round objects, break them up, and understand clearly how important something is or how big something is compared to the other. Our brain just doesn't work in that circular motion. Human beings read in a negative Z. So our brains understand these straight charts, these column charts. We don't tend to understand circles or in our brain take it in very well. That's a great question. Okay. Any other questions? This is great. Oh, Arakan. Okay, great. So so you were asking me about a DBA thing. So if you're doing Power BI, I believe that actually Microsoft themselves have, I don't know if they have a Power BI certification, but they have a number of free courses. But like I said, I know this guy, Avi Sign, AVISINGH. He has learnpowerbi.com. Again, I don't think it's a certification, but I've heard really, really good things about his classes. He also has, I think, the top book on Power BI. So that might be a good place to start with Power BI. Hope that helped. You're welcome. All right, other questions? Okay, what do you feel is the future of data visualization? So this question is interesting because I have a slightly different perspective. So my perspective is that the robots are taking over. Don't laugh if you guys aren't here. So what I mean by this is that, listen, okay, there is NLP, NLG, AI is taking over, okay? So there's natural language processing, natural language generation, there's audio analytics. Now they're doing, if you guys want to look it up, pupil analytics. I think that very soon, creating visualizations are going to become a commodity. And why I say that is the number of tools where you can type in a query and it pops up automatically what you want to see. A matter of fact, I've seen 2 IBM Watson applications that all you do is type in what you want to see and Watson actually spits it out with all the data. Watson spits out a visual. So I actually think that where Viz is heading is it's going to become smarter. But from a generation standpoint and creating it, I think that's going to start to become not commoditized, but eventually auto-generated using deep learning and machine learning. That's number one. Number two is I also see it being data viz being something that is real time. There's this thing called edge computing. Some of you have heard of. I think that you literally like Mission Impossible or Avatar, the movies, be able to walk even with your voice, right? Now we have Siri for business and not Bing for business and Alexa for business. I think you'll be able to tell it in a conference room, hey, we're about to get started on a sales presentation. And you might say, Alexa, so show me the sales for the last 90 days within the West region. And I honestly think whether it's some type of a screen or projector, it's just going to auto-generate to have the conversation in real time. That's where I think data viz is heading. So not that I think that all of us who do data viz are going to disappear. Let's be honest, with big enterprises, we're a long way away. But I do believe this is going to become something that's auto-generated, whether it's through your voice, whether it's through typing, whether it's through thinking. MIT just released a headset where you can talk without talking through your mouth. Think about that. You just have to think it and you talk on your phone. Think about data visualization, right? You sit down, you don't have to say much, and you think about it and it appears on your screen. So I know it sounds a little bit crazy. I think that's where we're heading. I first thought, for instance, that we were going to end up with data viz getting smaller and end up on a watch. And there are a lot of apps with analytics, but I do think that AI and deep learning are going to commoditize this. And I've spoken at quite a few of the big AI shows, and there's a lot of push toward commoditizing this whole thing. So it's coming, but it may be probably about 5. I think it's going to be a couple years out before it gets adopted. That's a great question. All right. Okay. Great question. I work for a small organization. What is your advice to better create actionable KPIs and metrics? So again, I mentioned to you guys that we have a specific philosophy. For those of you who have followed me for a while, you know about BI Dashboard Formula. This is my personal passion in how you create this. But in particular, if you go online, there is the Peter Drucker method. Okay. I actually did a presentation at this at MIT that was rated #1 last year. And so Peter Drucker has a SMART method, right? Which is make sure it's specific, measurable, actionable, something like that. I can't remember. But go up online and just look up the WHW method. Basically, what I did is I hacked it and I give you guys a specific single sentence that you fill in for your KPIs to turn it actionable by answering 3 questions. If you want to write down the 3 questions while I'm doing this with a pencil and paper, you can. The first question is, let's say you have a KPI and let's say it's sales. I do this example, it's very simple. The first question you ask yourself is, what action? Okay, what action do you want to take with it? Do you want to increase it? Do you want to, boost it, jump it, double it? The second question you ask is, how much? So you want to specify that you want to, let's say you want to, always use this one, you want to increase your sales or grow your sales. How much? By 25%. And then I ask by when? And you might say, well, I want to do it by December 2018. So what we do is, instead of just taking the sales KPI, guys, we then add in all those elements and we transform the name of the KPI. So the name of the KPI is now going to be gross sales by 25% by December 2016. That's a methodology that we develop as a part of our BI Dashboard Formula training. And what it does is, if you think about it, if I go and I tell someone to go visualize sales, or I put sales on a dashboard or a report, no one knows what it is. But if you then make the KPI, right, and it says now gross sales, right, by 25% by December 2018, you'll probably notice really quickly that now you have something that nobody has a question with. So that's, to me, that's the quickest way to create these actionable KPIs. And that's something, again, that we developed, that we use, we've taught it, and it works flawlessly. For those of you on Google, type in KPI, type in Mico Yuck and KPI. There's an entire white paper that I did with SAP that details out all of this. So everything's documented. All right, great question. Thank you guys for that. I love KPIs a little bit too much. Okay, next question. I see we have a few minutes here. Oh, yikes. Okay, so I'm gonna give you, again, I wish I knew how to give you guys stuff. We have like checklists in our classes, stuff that I'm happy to give you guys for free. Okay, so you can write this down. So my dashboards are a total mess. What are some of your tips to make it more visually appealing and effective? Okay, you can add it to the comment section. Great. I'm going to give you guys a checklist that we use for our course, okay? But in my brain, because I was just looking at it last night, there's a few things that we look at. Number one, and these may seem very simple, is white space. So one of the basics is, if you have a dark background, can it? Number two is you want to have consistency. So when I say consistency, this is basic. Number one, everything needs to be aligned. And number two, all your fonts need to be the same. And when I say that, I mean, and this is really aesthetic, that if titles are, Arial 14, make sure all the titles are Arial 14 and all the subtitles are Arial 12. Then there's nice to haves with design. Like, do you really need to show a legend? Okay. Legends are nice to haves. I always tell people, like, a lot of people are caught up in like trends and bar charts. And I always say to them, do you really need that information? A data viz is just to show answers. Sometimes utilizing a number and just an indicator is going to take people a lot further than showing them a chart and making them analyze. So one of the things you need to look at once you do some basic cleanup, and also white space, right? One of the reasons things look cluttered is if you don't have any white space and everything is congested, maybe you need to resize things. And if you're going, Mico, I don't know how, I can't resize it. Again, are you giving me a chart that I need to evaluate? Or are you just giving me the answer? We, a lot of times, use 3 different elements for a data viz. We use solid numbers, right, when needed to just tell people what it is. We then use indicators. And so indicators, whether they're up and down arrows, thumbs up, thumbs down. And then we also then sparingly use charts, typically single charts, to show exactly what the comparison is. We tend to stay away from all these huge, everything does not need to be a trend. As a matter of fact, I hate trends. All I see is trends. It just drives me nuts. Okay, everything is not a trend, guys. Like, focus on giving people answers. When you give me a trend, I have to evaluate, right? So we got to get away from that. So again, I can go on a bit of a rant about what needs to happen when it comes to visuals. But those are some of kind of my pointers, which are, some is aesthetic, but some is actually looking at, are you giving too much information? Just give the answer. If they want more information, they can go to a detailed report. Okay, and Pass is telling me they can share the links in the comments. So for those of you guys on here, I am going to give you guys, I can't see hands raised, but if anybody wants the checklist that we have for our course. I'll give it to you guys for free. I'll also give you the link to the paper for creating actionable. Okay, Madeline, I'll give you guys it for free. So there's 3 things I'll give you. I'll give you one as our checklist, which is usually available just to our class. You can use that checklist, okay, to fix your data vizzes. Number 2 is I'll give you the link to that white paper. It's on the internet for free if you haven't found it. And I think earlier there was another question. There's a lot of questions around the guys who are influencers. People consider me to be an influencer. I did write the Data Viz for Dummy books, but I follow every influencer online. And so I can give you guys kind of my top 3. Okay, Pass is telling my time's up. Okay, Chuck, I'll figure out with Pass. Let me put it up into like a little resource thing, and then I'll hand it to Pass. It might be in a blog post, and you guys can take it from there. Okay, so I need to wrap up. You guys are awesome. So I just want to say thank you to everyone for joining and participating in today's Pass Facebook Live expert session. There were some really great questions. There's an amazing lineup of experts that are planned for future events like myself. So be sure to like and follow the Pass Facebook page for updates and details on upcoming live pop-up sessions like this. And of course, if you're not a member, I highly recommend that you guys join Pass over at pass.org and create your profile today. It is literally one of the best places for data professionals to connect, share, and learn. Also, for those of you guys who weren't there last year, I'm plugging my workshop. If you guys have these questions, try to come to my workshop. If you can't join my online course, come to the workshop. It was very highly rated last year. We were sold out very quickly with people waiting outside. It's very intense, but all these questions around like creating stories, actionable KPIs, I go pretty hands-in. I have one of the top workshops in the world at this stage for that. So I would definitely consider that. And so feel free to join me online. For those of you on Facebook, LinkedIn, and Twitter, I'm at Mico Yuck. So you guys can come on. I get messages all day from around the world. Feel free to come in. But I'm going to share my free resources, and I just really appreciate you guys being here. Okay, Pass is going to kick me out. Thank you guys so much. Thank you.